Hello, I'm Brian from the channel Brian, and it's time to talk about the long-anticipated new film, The Last Night in Soho. This is a new psychological horror film from writer, director, and British person Edgar Wright. Wright has, since his debut, established his name as one of the most inventive and creative directors in the industry, dealing mostly in wildly edited, strategically framed comedies such as his famous Cornetto trilogy and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. He branched out with Baby Driver into something slightly more conventional in 2017. Now, despite a more mixed reaction than the seemingly unanimous praise of his previous films, I still find Baby Driver extremely true to his style. Last Night in Soho might come across strange to longtime fans, as this is Edgar Wright trying to make a normal movie, as it is an even more dramatic step out of his wheelhouse. The trailers behaved like the plot would be dense with secrets to discover, but for some reason, Soho is sorely lacking his signature level of detail. It's missing things in places where you'd expect something with more nuance. From any filmmaker, but especially Wright, who usually incorporates so much detail in the background of his movies, something you can watch again and again and notice something new, why is Last Night in Soho so surface level? It's a fine surface, all stylish and pretty, but I mean, there's just not much to chew on. I think the biggest issue with this movie is the more the plot advances, the less I understand about Soho's rules. The script is filled with so many unexplained inconsistencies that directly impact our awareness of the dangers our main character finds herself in. You never know anything about the nature of Thomasin McKenzie's psychic transportation into visions of the 1960s, but in a way that seems due to negligence than some directorial long con to intentionally disorient you. One minute, the framing of shots suggests Anya Taylor-Joy is some kind of time-traveling avatar for Mackenzie, but then backtracks into a paradigm of what happens to one happens to the other, but that is clearly not what's happening based on details we see later. Without any concreteness to the stakes, what am I supposed to be afraid of? As she's haunted by literal ghosts of the past, I do not feel at all informed as to what'll happen if they catch her. There's not even any establishing whether or not these visions she's having are actual events that transpired in the past or just figments of her imagination. However, Mackenzie is so deathly concerned for Joy's character, Sandy, despite no confirmation she's even real. I mean, someone dies in her dream and she goes to the police. Like an idiot? She's not a terrible character or anything. For most of the film, she's sweet, endearing, and I want her to succeed. I don't know what it is about this year where filmmakers want to send up giallo movies, but Wright is clearly calling back to Suspiria in more ways than one. I swear, it's not cause I just reviewed Suspiria and I have it on the brain, but Thomasin McKenzie in this is really Susie Bannion-esque. Soho opens with a doe-eyed girl attending a new school and taking a creepy taxi ride to get there. That is the opening to Suspiria. And Last Night in Soho makes more sense if it's trying to mimic the genre's sometimes blunt prioritization of style over plot detail. So it's a straightforward, uncomplicated horror movie because when asked what Wright wanted to do, I guess this is what he wanted to do. But still, there's a thematic divide between Mackenzie's personal struggles and the messages of the time travel plot. It's like you'd think there would be some connection or something she needs to learn or some kind of self-discovery, but the remotest of themes I could surmise is nostalgia towards old show business blinding us to the exploitation the industry's inflicted upon women, something Tarantino did 1,000 times better in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Wright's approaching this subject matter with a surreal, nightmarish edge. Mackenzie's fantasy version of London melts away until the exploitation's all that's left, and I like that. However, the script is so lacking in nuance for it to properly be as disturbing as it should in the midst of these effective, disorienting moments. Put nicely, Last Night in Soho is a strangely ignorant and simplified portrayal of how women are afraid of men. Julia Ducournau included fear of men in Titan as like a third-string message, but still with more truth and depth than this entire film. It's understandable and nice of Wright to try and press down hard on this issue, however, reducing the systems of abuse and control that are the heart of the problem into literally nothing but men leering like Haunted Mansion ghouls and Doctor Who slapping Joy going, "Don't you ever disrespect me," is like a Nick Jr. level approach. I think of a movie like The Assistant, which understood how to portray sexual harassment culture with the intricacy it deserves, and Soho pales so far in both sophistication and horror. However, if I can point out one criticism of Soho which is complete smooth-brain garbage, I've seen reviews saying Wright's issue here is a lack of explicitness. The subject matter is supposed to be dark and sexually disgusting, but Wright's approach is not gross enough because he lacks any level of sexual perversion himself. And this is why I do not like internet movie people, because I can say with decent certainty that these same people would cry foul at a Gaspar Noé movie or a Lars von Trier movie, where you can tell it was made by somebody legitimately out of their mind. This is just a group of people complaining they want something, who will then complain again once they receive it. Wright's execution is definitely lacking in impact, however it's due to an uncharacteristic lack of nuance and depth rather than him needing to be sleazy himself to tell a sleazy story. Stanley Kubrick made Eyes Wide Shut and is not a pervert. I mean, as far as I know. So despite all of Last Night in Soho's shortcomings, I'm being careful not to let my criticisms run away with themselves because I expect more out of Wright than most other directors. As far as this year's Giallo homages go, Soho is aesthetically truer to its roots than Malignant. The characters are stock but well performed, save for Matt Smith. Even if a lack of rules prevented complete investment, I wanted to see where the story would go. I thought there would be more to say about this, but it wears all its charms on its sleeve. It's a solid Giallo homage, but other than that, a middling horror movie with extremely above-average presentation. If a newcomer maybe made Last Night in Soho as their debut, I would still be pretty impressed and suggest you follow their future work. However, yeah, it does kinda sting when an Edgar Wright film only serves as a scattered list of thrills and entertainment when he's capable of Scott Pilgrim or Hot Fuzz. I'm gonna give Last Night in Soho a 6 out of 10. So anyway, did you like this movie more than me? Less than me? Well, if you care to, please tell me. And as always, if you like not only words, but the way I arrange and then say them, please feel free to give this video a like and subscribe to me, Brian from the channel Brian. Thank you, and goodbye.